So this morning, I am here to let you all know that we have a history here, a tradition here, and that is after someone becomes a licensed professional practitioner, after 4 or 5 years of taking classes and completing the Practitioner 1 and Practitioner 2 studies. That is opportunities for each one of us, all of the practitioners, to go deeper. After becoming a licensed professional practitioner and serving for a year, we have a tradition here where the practitioner then steps before the congregation and delivers a Sunday message. And so this morning, we have Jane Clougherty, who has reached that milestone of serving as a licensed professional practitioner here at the Center of Peace. So if you don't know Jane, let me just introduce you to Jane. Jane is a tenured professor at Drexel. Jane is always up for adventure and a good party. I'm serious. Jane is someone who has stretched her mind, takes her mind to the limits. Jane takes her body to the limits. Jane does bicycle rides, I think from here to Japan and back. You know, you might find a picture of Jane posted online. She's on Mount Rushmore. We don't know. We don't know. Jane might be deep underwater with the submarines. We don't know. But she rock climbs. She does trails, pushes her body to the limits. And now Jane has the unique experience of pushing her heart to the limits. So if you would please join me in welcoming Jane, our guest speaker this morning.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I've got this little gadget on me. Let's see if that's working, yeah? All right, you all can hear me? Wow. Wow, 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 is this really happening? Oh my goodness, what an honor. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful honor it is to have this opportunity to deliver the message today. And what an incredible statement of trust that Rev T gives us this opportunity to take the podium and come up here and say whatever we want. Even Rev T doesn't know what I'm going to be speaking about today. It's been a secret. But I knew from the moment that I knew I was going to be giving this message what I was going to be talking about. A lot of people get up here and will tell their story, their spiritual journey, and how they came to Center of Peace and what it's meant for them. And those are extraordinary stories to tell, and I would love to tell that story for myself. However, I am taking this unique opportunity today instead to tell you the story of the greatest belief in action I think has ever occurred on our planet. And oh my God, am I excited to tell you this story. I could just jump out of my skin. I've never had the opportunity to tell you this story before, but I can't believe we don't talk about this person more in Science of Mind. Did you know, and this is a fact, a real fact, a fact, that a 17-year-old girl with zero education, completely illiterate, could not even sign her own name, from a war-torn country, she was poor, she had no advantages, no technology, nothing. She had nothing except a crystal clear vision and the absolute knowingness with every single cell in her body that she was one with her God. Those are the only advantages she had in life. And she changed the fucking world. And I mean that literally. The map of the world that we live on today on this plane is not the same because of her. And she lived 600 years ago. Who am I talking about? God, why don't we talk about Joan of Arc here? Holy shit. Holy shit. First off, she was real. She's not a fable. She's not folklore. She's not a myth. She was a real live human being who lived on this plane and had nothing going for her. Her country was at war for 75 years when she was born. She grew up in a battlefield, not knowing if she and her family were going to wake up and still be alive the next morning. That was all her country knew when she came onto this plane, and she changed the course of history. So today, I am so excited to share her story with you. And I'm going to give a lot of facts and figures and dates and place locations, and you can forget all of those the minute we leave here. What I really want to say is that this is real, and this is how powerful a single human being can be on this earth when they know that they are one with God and they get crystal frickin' clear in their vision. All right, y'all ready? All right, here we go. First off, I guess this is also a little bit by way of teaser. Work with me? Here's Joan in Philadelphia. Y'all recognize this statue? Yeah, JFK and Pennsylvania Ave, right down across from the Art Museum. Everyone's lined up at the Rocky statue across the street. I'm over here worshiping at the foot of Joan, right? There's a direct connection from Joan of Arc to Pennsylvania. I'm not kidding. We're going to talk about that today. And by the way, right now, she's getting ready for the Rocky Run. I took this picture when I was out on my bicycle the other day, of course. All right. So, let's get started. I have been trying to figure out for months how to give this talk, and the best way I can figure out how to give it is chronologically. So let's start at the beginning. Joan was born up here in Domremy, France, January 2nd, 1412. We know dates in this story. Her life is incredibly well documented because she went through so many trials and so many inquisitions. And they happened in English, and they happened in French, and they were all translated into Latin, and there is incredible documentation of her life. Again, this shit is real. When she was about 13, she started having some weird visions. And one day, when she was 16, she's out in the backyard of her home. Her family were tenant farmers. They lived and worked on the land of another person. They ate what they grew, and that was it, hand to mouth. After her chores for the day, she's out in the backyard, which faced onto the local Catholic church. That was her happy place. She was the most devout young woman who ever lived. And a vision appeared, which was St. Michael the Archangel, St. Catherine, and St. Margaret. Random, right? You can't write this shit. What the hell the three of them are doing, hanging out together, who knows? But they all showed up and they said, Joan, we have a message to deliver, and it's not going to be easy to hear, but here goes. God chose you. You're the one. You got to save France. Good luck with that. Peace out. Joan's like, oh shit. But she knew it. She knew it was real. Those people were as solid to her as each of us sitting in this room right now. She could have told you the color of the laces on St. Michael's sandals if you asked her. That vision was crystal clear. She convinced an uncle to travel with her to the local. You know, this was so much easier to read on my computer. All right. Give me just 1 second here. Vaucouleurs, that's the name of the town I'm trying to remember. That's it. The larger town by them was Vaucouleurs. She convinced an uncle to travel there with her and talk to the local military captain and say, here's your savior, ready to go. The military captain, of course, laughed in their face and sent them home. It's recorded that what he actually said to the uncle was, take her home to her father. Of course, they didn't give up. They kept going back, weeks after weeks after weeks. It's an interesting story how she eventually convinced the captain to believe her, but it's a little bit of a sidetrack, so if anyone wants to hear that story later, I'm happy to share. But eventually the captain agreed and said, okay, I will send you to Chinon, where the king-to-be is hiding out. And I'll send a couple army people with you, and we'll hide you in some armor. And she and the uncle, with that small band, traveled from Domremy, her home village outside of Vaucouleurs, all the way down to Chinon. 325 miles through enemy territory at that point. So, we need to take a huge step back. There is no understanding Joan of Arc without understanding the context of her time. As I mentioned, she was born 75 years into what would become known as the 100 Years' War. And what that basically means is that Britain was ravaging out of France for 75 years at that point, taking over cities, killing civilians, burning the fields. A favorite trick of theirs was that at the time in the countryside, the peasants of France would gather their wheat into a single silo and granary so everybody could grind wheat into flour and take it home to make bread. A favorite trick of the British soldiers was to sneak through in the middle of the night and set the whole thing on fire so nobody could make bread. That's called genocide. So sure enough, over the course of the 100 Years' War, in normally over 100 years, a population expands and expands over 4 to 5 generations. The population of France, of course, collapsed from about 18 million to about 12 million people over that 100 years. And those few that were remaining were in very, very rough shape. This is also a horrific moment in the 100 Years' War. And again, I'm reaffirming all of this because this shit is real. This actually happened. All of this land up here, up top, was under British occupation at this point. This land around here, around Bordeaux, was also under British occupation. This was still France, and that tiny little area that Joan was from around Domremy was French. All the population centers were gone. Everything was occupied. Paris was gone for 10 years at this point, okay? This was the last hope. That's the Loire Valley, the last populated, densely populated area of France. After that, it's all farmland down to the mountains. So that's it. Everything's gone. France almost ceased to exist. Very, very close, hanging on by a hair's breadth. So Joan and the uncle, with their little contingent, are sent down to Chinon, where the king-to-be, the Dauphin, was hiding. He was long ago kicked out of Paris, and he had to be hiding in French territory. Like most wars, it started over a power struggle. Back in those days, the monarchies were all intermarrying, and the bloodlines were very tangled. And of course, Britain, when the bloodlines got confused, took a claim to France. And that's what the whole war was about. Of course, we have the vantage point from history to know that Britain also had some designs on building themselves a pretty huge empire. Okay. So they get down to Chinon, and the king-to-be had hidden himself in his own court, and he had word that this unusual young lady was coming to see him, and it freaked him out a little bit. So he wanted to get a good look at her before he spoke to her. And she wasn't fooled. He's in the crowd, and she walks straight up to him, and she says, "Hello, I'm Joan, and I was sent by God to save you. I was sent by God to help you." They had a private meeting, and basically he agreed that, okay, if you check out, then I'll give you your army and you can go to war. She spent the next 3 weeks under inquisition by the Catholic priests. They quizzed her painfully in extraordinary detail about her catechism, her knowledge of the church, her devoutness to God, and the strength of her belief that she indeed was on a mission given to her by God. They also wanted to check out that she wasn't a spy for the British. She checked out. They sent her back to the king-to-be and said, "We can't find a break in her story. She seems consistent." And that's the thing. no matter how long that inquisition went on, no matter how many crazy questions were asked, and this is going to come up again and again in her life. Oh, and they did verify her virginity, because that's relevant. They couldn't break her story because it was nowhere in her consciousness that she was not one with God and that she was not on a mission with God. And that's the thing. The consistency was apparent throughout. And they send her back to the king-to-be, the Dauphin, and he says, okay, well, let's send you off to war then. We'll see how this goes. And her first assignment was to go to Orleans. I already showed you where Orleans is. It's that last line of defense. That's the big town, the big city, and the small cities around it. And this is what Orleans looked like at the time. Medieval walls all around it, facing onto the Loire River. So Joan shows up on the scene, and there are two generals running the show at Orleans. And she says to them, okay, I'm Joan. Here we go. Let's win this battle. Let's win this war. Let's take our country back for God. And they said, well, you know, we're really outnumbered, and we're really poor, and our army's really hungry. We're in bad shape here. This battle had been raging on for 9 months. And they said, well, usually what we do is we sneak in occasionally by dark of night and try to pick off a British soldier here and there, and then we scamper out by dawn and go hide. And Joan said, hold on. Whoa. Let me get this straight. They're in our country. They're taking over our cities. They're killing our people. And you guys are playing scared? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Come on, follow me. She leads the charge, and it was one goal, straight across the bridge. There's one way into town and one way out. We're going, light of day. We want the bridge and we want the tower. Whoever owns the bridge owns access in and out of town. Whoever controls the tower is the only person who can see what's going on. That's all we need. Forget everything else. Forget everything else. One focus. Go. And that's what they did. And after 9 months, she had that shit wrapped up in 2 days. And again, I promised you dates. May 8th and 9th, 1429. Okay. So she heads back to Chinon, where the Dauphin, the king-to-be, is hiding, and she says, all right, let's go get you coronated. Her one goal was French crown, French head, self-government. That's what we're looking for. Okay. And he says, no, I can't go. I can't go. They're going to kill me. There are too many, it's enemy territory. There are too many other towns held by British soldiers between here and there. And she says, okay. You wait right here where it's safe. I'll be right back. She charges to Jargeau, also along that river valley. All the action's happening right along that little river valley right there. She hits Jargeau June 12th, 1429, takes that town back in 2 days. 2 days later, Monts-sur-Loire, June 15th, 1429, takes that town back in 1 day. Hits Beaugency June 17th, takes that town back in 2 days. Turns around, jumps back on that horse, heads back down to Chinon. All right, let's go. We got to get you crowned. We can't let this foolishness go on any longer. Mission from God. So he jumps on, and they go charging on up to Reims, up here. Traditionally, the only coronations recognized by the French were holy coronations held in the cathedral at Reims. If it didn't happen there, it wasn't legitimate. So that's where they were going. Joan sent word ahead, get that cathedral cleaned up, we're having a coronation. They got there July 16th, coronation happened the next morning. All right, July 17th. I'm done here. I'm out, heading back to the farm. Thanks, y'all. It's been real. Joan's ready to go home. That was 79 days. From the day that she showed up in Orleans, April 29th, to the day they put the French crown on the French head on July 17th, 79 days. What the hell have I done in the past 79 days? She had no advantages of technology. There was no texting her friends. Yo, it's going down in Orleans. Come on, I need backup. Let's go. There were no phones. Letters took weeks to arrive by horseback, and very few people could read or write, so letters were barely worth sending. But she was one with her God, and she had a clear mission, a clear vision. This is what we're doing. We're getting a French crown on a French head, and we're saving our country. God said so. She tried to go back to the farm, but of course, about a year later, the king-to-be sent word, Joan, I don't really know how to govern. Please help. So she's called back into the fray. She's called back into battle. She was captured and imprisoned by the British. And they imprisoned her in an incredibly nasty way. She was in a basement, the log on the floor, strapped to the log, her limbs pinned. And she was that way for the better part of a year. She was only allowed out to attend trial. Her trial went on for 3 weeks. Some of it was public, some of it was private. They would wake her up in the middle of the night with questions. She never broke. Not one time did she say that she was not one with her God, because that was not in her consciousness. She was. She and her God were one. That vision was clear. And no earthly person was going to separate her from her God. In fact, she is recorded to have once said to the Dauphin, with all due respect, my king to be, your power is given to you by man, but my mission was given to me by God. There was simply no getting in her way. It wasn't possible. It wasn't possible. After that nasty imprisonment and an inquisition that went on for weeks, she ostensibly signed a confession. However, recall that she couldn't read or write, so it's believed that either it was falsely read to her, what that confession said, or her signature was forged. She couldn't write her name. She simply signed with the sign of the cross, so a very easy signature to forge. And Joan was burned at the stake in Rouen on May 30th, 1431. She was 19 years old. She was still a child. Her mother spent the next 15 years wholeheartedly dedicated to clearing her daughter's name. And her mother advocated for a second trial. She knew it couldn't bring her daughter back, but she felt that she owed it to her daughter to clear her name. Her devoutness, her belief in God, the fact that she was willing to go to any imaginable lengths to do what she believed was right and to carry out that division and that vision and that devoutness. So after about 15 years, her mother did indeed succeed in getting her a second trial. It came up for other political reasons. Happy to tell anyone that story. And in the second trial, which was run by the French courts, not the British ones, she was indeed found innocent. She was declared innocent on July 7th, 1436. And on May 16th, 1920, almost 500 years later, she was canonized, that is, recognized as a saint, by Pope Benedict XV and the Roman Catholic Church, proving that, once again, the arc of the universe can be exceedingly long. I promised today that I would draw the connection between Joan and the extraordinary example of belief in action that she is, the indescribable, unfathomable power that was in her, knowing that she was one with God. And I would connect her back to Pennsylvania. So let's do that now. I mentioned that Joan's actions changed not only her country, but the entire world. And we know today that it wasn't just France. We'll get back to that picture in a moment. It wasn't just France that Britain had their eyes on. They wanted to build an empire. This is eventually what the British Empire looked like. Look how far afield they had to go. Australia, India, Africa. That was not Plan A. Plan A was to go 21 miles across the English Channel. People swim that thing. I'm not gonna, don't worry. But, I could scuba there. All right, that's another story. But Plan A was to grab the land of their nearest neighbors and spread from there. And Joan said, hell no, not on my watch. That, by the way, is Joan fighting at Orleans. I love how the artistic renderings have to make her look all svelte and fabulous. Lululemon was not in the armor business. That's not what she looked like. She didn't have time to do her makeup before going to war. This is Joan arriving in front of the cathedral at Reims for the coronation, to put that French crown on a French head. I took this photo visiting with my niece. My niece went to school in this town. By the way, hot tip for those of you with young people in your life looking to go to university, it's a shit ton cheaper in Europe. It's a lot cheaper in Europe. Yeah. That's the beautiful cathedral where it happened. That's the room where it happened. And they still hold a light show every night on the front of that cathedral, telling the story of that coronation. I have it on my cell phone. If anyone wants to see afterwards, you're welcome to. And there's my niece and I celebrating the coronation afterwards, after our visit to the cathedral. All right, so Britain went pretty far afield and worked really damn hard to build that empire. We know that. Anyone know who this gentleman is? I heard it. Lafayette. Yes. So this is a better picture than I was able to get. This is right behind the Art Museum here in Philly. I was out there taking pictures of this statue and somebody came up and read it and said, oh, Lafayette, he was in Hamilton. Yes, he was in Hamilton. That's true. That's what he's known for. That is true. All right. When we were little colonies and fighting for our own self-determination, France was our best friend. They sent us money. They sent us uniforms. They sent us weapons. They had naval troops off in the Atlantic fighting the British monarchy on our behalf. And they sent us their best general to help organize us, get us into shape, and help us earn self-determination. They said, we've been where you are. We fought the superpower of the day. We fought that monarchy. We're here for you. And of course, about 100 years, oh, by the way, the Dauphin, the king-to-be, he's got his own street in Philly too. That's who it was named after. So of course, 100 years later, France gave us an extraordinary congratulations gift, one of the most generous gifts that has ever been given from one country to another. Cost about $20 million to build it in modern money. And one of the most beautiful things I learned as I was doing research for this message is that this was not actually a gift from the French government. It was a gift from the French people. Individuals raised money, bake sales, car washes, I don't know what they did in that day. Little old ladies crocheted sweaters to sell to raise an extraordinary amount of money to give a gift of friendship. And the French slogan is Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, liberty, equality, brotherhood. Their hope was that we would be their partners with them in supporting democracy and helping to spread it around the globe. Now, I'll caveat that by saying France has also had a nasty history. They've also been colonists. We've made a lot of mistakes around the globe. They've made a lot of mistakes around the globe. No question about that. But in our moment of need, they were there for us. And we're very happy. We're very helpful to us. So my point is, no Joan, no France quite possibly, no US. That mural just went up a couple of months ago north of Paris, watching and reflecting on the news in the US today, and the hope that we will continue to move forward towards democracy and self-determination and keep that as a central part of our vision and our God-given mission. So, putting this talk together gave me an extraordinary opportunity to think about visions. And I'm so thrilled that earlier today we talked about the process of visioning and what it has meant in this center, for individuals in this center and for the creation and the future of our center. And I hope all of you will participate in the upcoming visioning workshop. Joan is an extraordinary example of how a vision can change a life. And the incredible thing that is so powerful about her vision is that she accepted it 100%. She was a child when she had her first visions. And what she could have done when those three saints, Michael, Margaret, and Catherine, randomly showed up in her backyard is she could have said, "Oh, Dad, help." Right? It's a scary and weird thing. She also could have said, you know, that's a really good idea. That's a great idea. Somebody should really save France. Somebody. Someone. But she did neither of those things. She accepted the vision, she received it, and she said, I do not understand why God delivered this vision to me. It's overwhelming, it's freaky, it's crazy, and I'm a 16-year-old illiterate kid. But she didn't. She said, I will never understand why God gave me that vision. But for whatever reason, he did. And it's not mine to question. It's only mine to carry it forward. So she accepted her vision. C'est moi, je suis l'une. It's me, I am the one. I heard this wonderful story once that really stayed with me. And it's about two singers back in the day, before my time. Leonard Cohen, I know who he is. The other one, Tom Waits, I couldn't quite tell you who he is. I know the name. But each of them thought the other was the most talented guy in music. And Tom Waits is driving on the highway in Los Angeles one day, and he hears this hauntingly beautiful song come to him. But he had no way to capture it. He wasn't at his piano. He couldn't write sheet music. He's in 6 lanes of traffic, and there's no pulling over. And he couldn't capture this song that was so gorgeous and haunting to him. And he said, oh, God, I am at my piano 8 hours a day. Please send this to me tomorrow when I can receive it. And if you can't wait that long, send it to Leonard Cohen. And he didn't get the song back in the coming days. And he's like, oh God, what was that? And he just couldn't get it back. And a year or two later, he turns on the radio one day and he hears the opening bars of Leonard Cohen's Alleluia. He said, holy shit, the bastard stole my song. But the point is, he knew he was receiving something. He had the talent and the ability to deliver on it, but he wasn't able to receive it at that moment. So he had to say, God, please, either send it back to me or send it to someone else who can deliver. God was in a hurry. So, what I want to leave you with today are just two questions. Number one, is there some crazy idea that keeps cropping up in the back of your head? Something that you feel like really has to happen or really needs to exist on our planet? Is there maybe some idea that, your friends and family think you're a little crazy, that you keep talking about this idea, they don't see it? Is it possible that it's your idea and that Spirit has participated in putting it there because you're able to see it and you have the right combination of skills or talents or unique abilities that you could deliver on this vision? Is it possible that some little idea noodling in the back of your head is uniquely yours for a reason, and maybe Spirit planted it there? My second question is very simple. What you gonna do about it? That's all. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, do I hand it over to you, or do I get to invite my sister practitioners up?
Yeah, invite your practitioners.
Sisters, please join me. Let's anchor this thing. I think there's a question in the crowd. Yes?
I went to first to 8th grade at St. Joan of Arc's Church, Philadelphia.
Wonderful.
I lived right across the street from it. And the nuns pounded that into my head, and I forgot all of it, and now you brought it back.
Thank you.
For doing that.
I'm so honored. Thank you so much. I'm so happy it spoke to you today, and thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. I want to go to St. Joan of Arc School. Oh my God! Let's rename Drexel. All right. But first, let's pray. Oh my God. I am knowing today that there is absolutely and solely one beautiful spirit, one beautiful power, one beautiful essence, one beautiful God. That is anything and everything in this universe. It is the energy that enlightens the trees, the stars, the moons, the energy in every cell, in every being, every species on this planet. And I know that that power and that strength and that vision is the one essence and energy and power that is in me. And it is the one power, beauty, energy, and essence that is in every single person gathered here today and beyond. And we know that because we are one with this power, this spirit, this vision, this God who is within us, we know that we cannot be stopped, no matter what, that we are serving and enlightening and bringing joy and peace and gratitude to each and every soul who we touch, and that we can't help but to bring our most perfect visions into alignment and into being on this planet. So I am knowing as we get clear in our own purposes, those purposes can do nothing but become clear on this earth, on this very plane, in this world in which we live. And with such immense gratitude for knowing this to be, I release this prayer now into the law of the mind and anchor it simply by saying, and so it is.
And so, as we journey on throughout our week, let me remind you, like the Joan of Arc, jump on your horse with your clear vision and affirm that you are one with God. You can't be stopped. And so it is.